The door opened before she finished knocking.
You'd be Mae Callister.
I am. And you're Cole Briggs.
Mae Callister had rehearsed this moment for 11 months. She'd rehearsed it on the train from Richmond, rehearsed it somewhere past the Mississippi when the land flattened out and the sky got too big, rehearsed it again this morning in the back of a stranger's wagon while Montana tried its best to shake her teeth loose. She had imagined 100 versions of this door opening. In every single one, she recognized the man behind it. She did not recognize this man. He was tall, that much matched. But the letters had given her someone careful, considered, a man who chose his words the way a carpenter chooses wood, testing the weight before committing. The man in the doorway had dust in the creases of his neck and blood on the knee of his work pants, and an expression that said he'd been interrupted doing something that mattered more than this. His jaw hadn't seen a razor in days. His eyes were brown and guarded, and not particularly warm. He looked at her the way a man looks at weather he didn't predict. Not a question. A fact being confirmed before it could become a problem. She had the letters in her coat pocket, 12 of them, folded soft from rereading, the paper worn thin at the creases. She'd carried them across 4 states like they were something sacred. She pressed her hand against them now without thinking.
Come in out of the cold.
He stepped aside and held the door open. That was all. No welcome, no apology for the mud on the porch, no acknowledgement that she had crossed half a country on the strength of his word. There's a particular kind of silence that happens when something you built in your mind meets the thing that actually exists. It doesn't always make a sound. Sometimes it just settles, quiet and heavy, like snow. But to understand what that silence cost her, you have to go back, 12 months back. Before Montana, before the ranch, before any of this. Greer's Mill, Virginia. A general store on a muddy street, a notice board beside the door, and Mae Callister, 26 years old, out of options, and too stubborn to admit either. The notice was small, typed on a machine that needed a new ribbon, the letters faint and slightly crooked. Rancher, 34. Montana Territory. Seeks a wife of good character and steady disposition. No fortune required. Write first. Cole Briggs, Harlan Creek. She almost didn't write. She had a position as a seamstress's assistant that paid barely enough to keep the cold out, a landlady who was running out of patience, and a practical sense that correspondence with a stranger in Montana was not a solution to any problem she actually had. She wrote anyway, because the word steady caught her eye. Not handsome, not wealthy, not ambitious. Steady. Like a man who already knew what life was, and wasn't asking it to be anything else. She expected nothing back. She got a letter in 9 days.
Miss Callister, you asked about the ranch. It runs to about 400 acres along a creek that doesn't have a proper name, only a direction. North Creek, South Fence, that's how we navigate here. I have cattle and a barn and a house that's sound but plain. The winters are long. I want you to know that before anything else. A person who hasn't lived through a Montana winter shouldn't walk into one without warning. Write back if you're still inclined. Cole Briggs.
She read it twice. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even particularly warm. But there was something in it she hadn't expected. The warning. He'd used his first letter not to sell himself, but to give her a reason to say no. In Mae's experience, men who offered you the exit first were usually worth walking toward. She wrote back the same evening.
Mr. Briggs, I have lived through Virginia winters, which I understand are nothing like Montana winters. But I have also lived through 3 years of making do on wages that didn't quite reach the end of the month, which I suspect teaches a person more about endurance than any particular weather does. I am not easily discouraged. I am, however, particular about honesty, which appears to be something we have in common. Tell me about the creek that doesn't have a name, Mae Callister.
His second letter came in 11 days. It was longer.
Miss Callister. The creek runs fast in spring from the snowmelt, shallow and cold enough to ache, and by August it slows to something you could step across without wetting your knees. There are trout in the deep bend past the willow stand, more than a person needs. I have eaten trout more ways than I can count. I'm not complaining about this. I find I wanted you to know it anyway. The ranch is quiet most of the year. I have a hand named Denny who works 3 days a week and doesn't say much. I think you'd find it a different kind of quiet than what you're used to. Not bad quiet, just big.
Big quiet. She'd read those two words twice, and then a third time, and by the third time she was sitting in the cold of her rented room with the lamp burning low and something she couldn't quite name pressing against the inside of her chest. The letters found a rhythm after that, every 10 days or so, crossing each other sometimes in the mail, arriving out of order so she'd read his third before his second and have to rearrange her understanding of him like pieces of a puzzle assembled wrong side up. He wrote about the land the way other men didn't write about anything, with a precision that was almost tender. The way the light hit the ridge in October, the particular silence before a storm. A calf born in February that shouldn't have survived but did, stubborn and small and furious about being alive.
I think you love that ranch the way some people love a person. Like it requires something from you and you've decided that's all right.
His response came back in 8 days, faster than usual.
I've thought about what you said. About the ranch, you may be right. I never put words to it before. It's strange to have someone do that from 1,000 miles away and have it land true.
She read that letter so many times the paper started to separate at the folds. By the 6th letter, he'd started asking about her. Not the polite questions a man asks a woman he's trying to impress. Real questions, the kind that suggested he'd been thinking between letters.
You mentioned your mother once, in passing, that she was gone. You didn't say more and I didn't ask, but I found myself wondering what she was like. You don't have to answer that. I'm aware it's not the kind of thing a practical correspondence is supposed to include. I seem to be writing it anyway.
She was the kind of woman who laughed at her own jokes before she finished them. She couldn't carry a tune, but she sang anyway, every morning, and I used to lie in bed pretending to be asleep just to hear it. She died when I was 14. I still hear the songs sometimes, in the part of the morning right before I'm fully awake. I'm glad you asked.
That was letter 7. By letter 10, they had stopped writing like strangers. She caught herself once describing him to her landlady as if she knew him. Stopped mid-sentence when she realized she was smiling. The landlady had raised an eyebrow and Mae had gone back to her sewing and said nothing. But the smile didn't entirely leave. The 12th letter arrived on a Tuesday in March, when the mud in the street outside was starting to soften, and the light had that particular quality it gets in early spring, not warm yet, but trying.
I am not a man who says things he doesn't mean. I want to say something now and I need you to know I mean it. These letters, writing them, waiting for yours, it's become the thing I look forward to. More than I expected. More than I think is practical, given the distance. I am asking, if you're willing for something less practical, I would like to know if you'd be willing to come here. Not as a correspondence. As something that might become a life, if we find we suit each other in person the way I believe we do on paper. I understand if the answer is no. I'll understand it and I won't write again if that's what you need. But I wanted to ask.
She said yes before she finished reading. If you've ever made a decision before your practical mind caught up with you, before the rest of you agreed, before it made any sense at all, I'd be glad to hear about it in the comments. That kind of moment deserves to be talked about. Whatever it is, Mae Callister packed a trunk and bought a train ticket and crossed half a country toward a man she'd never seen. And now she was standing in his kitchen, coat still on, trunk still on the porch, because he hadn't offered to bring it in, watching him fill a tin cup from the stovepot with the same efficiency he'd probably used for everything. No wasted motion, no performance. The kitchen was clean. That surprised her. A single plate drying on the rack. A cast iron pan hanging on its nail. Everything in its place, placed by a man who had lived alone long enough to make order a habit rather than an effort.
Coffee.
He set it on the table in front of her. Not handed, set. Then he pulled out the chair across from hers and sat down and looked at her with those brown eyes that gave nothing away. She thought about the letter. I believe we suit each other on paper. She reached into her coat pocket.
I kept all of them.
She put the 12 letters on the table between them, folded, worn, each one with the date written on the outside in her own hand. He looked at them for a long moment. Something moved across his face too quick to read, there and gone.
I know you did. I kept yours.
They don't sound like you.
The words came out before she could stop them. She felt her face change the moment she said it and she wanted to take it back, but she also didn't, because it was true and she had come too far for anything less.
No, they don't.
She waited. He picked up his cup and drank and set it down again, and the quiet in the kitchen had weight to it.
My hand named Denny. He did the writing. I told him what to say. He wrote it so it sounded like the way things sound when someone knows how to arrange words.
You dictated them.
Mostly. Sometimes I'd talk and he'd make it better. The ideas were mine. He had a way with the sentence part. There it was.
The thing she'd built in her mind, that particular voice, the way he'd written about the October light and the trout in the deep bend and her mother's songs that had been a translation. His thoughts, someone else's words. She didn't move, didn't speak. She could feel the letters under her hand on the table, 12 of them, worn soft from rereading, and for a moment they felt like something different than they had that morning. Not less, just different. Like a photograph of someone you love taken by a stranger. Still true, just not the whole picture. She looked at him. He was watching her with the careful expression of a man waiting to hear something he isn't sure he can fix.
The letter about my mother? The one where you said you'd been thinking between letters.
That was mine. Word for word. Denny said it was too plain. I told him to leave it.
And the last one, about coming here.
I wrote that one myself. It took me most of a week.
She picked up the 12th letter. She knew it by feel, slightly thicker paper, the handwriting uneven, some letters larger than others, a cross out near the top where he'd started over. She'd noticed the handwriting was different when it arrived. She'd told herself he'd been writing in a hurry. She unfolded it now and looked at it properly for the first time, the same words she'd read a dozen times, but in a hand that was clearly a man fighting to get something down before he lost the nerve. She folded it back, set it on top of the others.
The ideas were yours.
Yes.
The things you told Denny to say. About the creek, about the quiet, about finding it strange that I'd named something true from 1,000 miles away.
Yes.
Then I came here because of you.
He didn't answer right away. Outside, the wind pushed against the north side of the house and something in the eaves creaked and settled.
You came here on a version of me that was better spoken.
I came here on a version of you that was honest even when it cost you something. That's the part that matters to me.
He looked at her for a long time.
You might feel different after a week.
I might. You might also feel different after a week of me being underfoot in your very orderly kitchen.
Something shifted in his face. Not a smile, not quite, but the guarded quality in his eyes moved slightly, like a curtain lifted by a draft.
The back room's ready. I'll get your trunk.
The first week was careful. He left before light and came back at dark and spoke in the short sentences of a man rationing words the way you ration firewood in a long winter. She learned the kitchen by working around his system, which shelf, which hook, which burner ran hot. She didn't rearrange anything. He didn't thank her for that, but she could tell he noticed. On the third morning, she was reaching for the salt on the high shelf when he came in from outside without announcing himself. He crossed the kitchen in 2 strides and reached past her, close enough that she felt the cold still coming off his coat, close enough that she didn't move and he didn't apologize, and brought the salt down and set it on the counter beside her hand.
Top shelves for things I use less.
He was already turning back toward the door. Mae stood at the counter for a moment with her hand on the salt and her pulse doing something she didn't entirely trust. On the 4th day, she found a shelf of books in the sitting room.
Have you read these?
Some. Denny reads more than I do.
May I borrow one?
They're there to be read.
She started reading aloud on the second evening, just a passage, quietly, not performing. She'd gotten 2 pages in before she realized he'd stopped cleaning tack at the table. She kept reading anyway. He didn't ask her to stop. On the 5th evening, she looked up mid-sentence and found him watching her. Not the work in his hands. Her. He dropped his eyes the moment she looked up, and she looked back down at the page and kept reading, her voice steady, her heart doing that thing again that she was beginning to suspect had nothing to do with the altitude. Then on the 9th day, Denny arrived. He was younger than she'd imagined, late 20s, with quick eyes and ink-stained fingers even now, the hands of a man who read more than he worked. He looked at her with undisguised curiosity, and then at Cole with something more complicated. Mae understood, watching them, that Denny knew everything about her. Every letter, every question she'd asked, Everything she'd said about her mother and her landlady and the quality of spring light. He knew her the way a translator knows a language completely, and from the outside. They shook hands, his grip was firm and apologetic at once.
You're a good writer.
Denny said Cole was a better thinker than he let on, and that he had only moved the furniture around. Cole was watching from across the yard. Mae glanced at him and back at Denny.
I know.
The trouble came that afternoon. A section of fence along the south pasture had come down in the night, cattle through, tracks leading toward the tree line and the creek beyond. Cole and Denny were gone an hour before Mae understood the creek was running fast with the spring melt. Too fast. She didn't let herself think too hard about that. She put supper on and kept it warm and did not go to the window more than necessary. They came back at dusk. Cole was soaked to the knee, jaw set, 6 head short, and a look on his face that said the day had cost him more than cattle. He sat at the table and didn't eat. Denny left early, quietly. Mae took the pot off the stove, set a plate in front of Cole and sat across from him. He stared at it.
3 years of building that pasture line.
She didn't offer anything false. She just sat. After a while, he picked up the fork. As slowly, mechanically, the way a man eats when he's doing it for fuel rather than pleasure. When he finished, he pushed the plate aside and looked at her.
You didn't ask how many we lost.
I figured you'd tell me when you were ready.
6 head. Probably more by morning.
I'm sorry.
It'll set us back.
Us. He'd said it without thinking, and she watched him register it the same moment she did. He didn't correct himself. She stood and took the plate to the basin. Stood there with her back to him. Not hiding, just giving him room to decide what to do with what he'd said.
Mae.
She turned.
The first letter you wrote me. You said you were particular about honesty. That it appeared we had that in common. I need to know if that still holds. After Denny. After all of it.
She crossed her arms slowly, not against him, against the cold that had followed him in from outside and hadn't left yet.
Ask me what you want to ask.
Are you still here because of who you thought I was? Or are you here because of who I am?
The lamp on the table burned low. Outside, the creek was audible, running fast with all that snowmelt, carrying everything the mountains had held through winter. Some things need a long, cold season before they can finally move.
I've been watching you for 9 days. The way you work, the way you listen, the way you stayed at the table in the evenings longer than you needed to. I came here because of your words. I'm staying because of your actions. Those are not as different as you think.
The fence got rebuilt over 3 days. Cole and Denny worked from first light, and Mae brought food out at midday, without being asked, sandwiches wrapped in cloth, a jar of water still cold from the well. Cole took his without breaking stride. Denny took his and said thank you twice, and looked like he meant it. On the 3rd day, Denny left at dusk, and Cole kept working alone until the light was gone. Mae watched him from the porch, the methodical posts, the wire, the man who'd built this thing once already and was simply building it again because that was what the land asked. She thought about the first letter. A person who hasn't lived through a Montana winter shouldn't walk into one without warning. She'd thought he was being cautious. She understood now he'd been telling the truth the only way he knew how, by showing her what it cost. That evening he came in, and she had coffee ready, and he sat down without the mud and exhaustion distance that had been between them those first days. He sat down like a man sitting down in his own kitchen. She set the cup in front of him, and when she pulled her hand back, his fingers caught her wrist. Not gripping, just resting there for a second, the way you stop something from moving away before you've decided what to say. She didn't pull back, he let go. They sat across from each other. The lamp was steady.
The letters bothered you, at first.
Yes.
Do they still?
A little. Not for the reason you think.
What reason then?
Because I wonder what you would have written if you'd had the words. Whether it would have been more than what Denny wrote, or less. Whether the truest things about you are the ones that got translated or the ones you kept.
He thought about that. She'd learned to let him.
Probably both. The creek at snowmelt, that was mine. The way I wrote about the calf that shouldn't have made it, mine. Denny made them sound like something, but the feeling was mine first.
I know.
You know because of the last letter.
I know because of 9 days.
He looked at her the way he looked at the land sometimes, like something that required his full attention and had earned it. Not a small thing. That look. Not from a man who gave his attention sparingly. He reached across the table and picked up the last letter, the 12th one, which she'd left on the corner of the table that first evening, and neither of them had moved since. He unfolded it, looked at it. Then he pushed it across to her. She looked at the uneven handwriting, the cross out near the top, the large letters where he'd pressed too hard.
I'd like to write you another one, with my own hand this time, if you're willing to read it that way.
Mae looked at the letter, at the struggle in the handwriting, a man for whom words were a foreign country, attempting the passage anyway because he'd decided she was worth the trip.
I'd like that very much.
Outside, the creek was still running, but differently now. Not the urgent, tearing rush of the first days, but something longer. Something that had found its channel and knew where it was going. Spring takes its time in Montana, but when it commits, it doesn't look back. They didn't declare anything that night. They didn't need to. They sat at the kitchen table while the lamp held its light, and the things they'd said settled slowly into the shape of something that might, in time, become a life. Cole Briggs had sent for a wife with borrowed words. Mae Callister had come for a man she'd built from letters. What they found was simpler and harder than either one had planned. Not the thing they'd imagined, but the thing they'd actually needed. Sometimes those turn out to be the same. Thank you for riding this one out with me. If you've ever loved something that didn't arrive in the shape you expected, a place, a person, a version of your own life, you know that the surprise doesn't make it less. Sometimes it makes it more. Come back whenever you're ready for another story. I'll be here.